the works and insights of Edward O. Thorp.
I've been a professor of mathematics at several American universities.
I was born in Chicago at the very bottom of the Great Depression.
And I've also got a background in physics.
I got my PhD in math at UCLA, and then I got a position at MIT. It's a so-called CLE Moore instructorship, but it's a competitive honorary instructorship.
As an expert blackjack player,
nobody was keeping track of the cards that were out, and that those cards had to have a big impact on the way the odds shifted back and forth.
Beat Blackjack by counting cards.
I think it's safe to say that he's the only UCI faculty member in the Blackjack Hall of Fame.
Well, I got interested in card counting because as a mathematician, I happened to go to Las Vegas and play blackjack for fun. And when I did it, I saw how to beat the game. So I sat down to work it out with computers and reasoning, and it worked just fine.
But the counting systems are much more efficient. They give simple values to each of the 10 different values by blackjack rules of the cards. And so it really doesn't matter when you learn one of these counting systems how many decks there are. It only matters because multiple decks tend to shift the odds just because of the math very slightly in favor of toward the casino and away from the player, so it makes it a little harder to beat them than if you're only playing against one deck. But otherwise, for counting, it's not a problem.
As a renowned hedge fund manager,
and I was able to build the first market-neutral hedge fund operating with those ideas, and it was very successful for some 20 years.
And the use of effective hedge fund techniques in financial markets.
The godfather of quants.
I actually had the idea while I was at UCLA to beat roulette, to actually build a machine to predict where the ball would come out. And I was convinced I could do that. I started doing experiments, and the experiments were very positive, and it convinced me that I was almost sure to be able to do it.
Devising a wearable computer, the first one, to predict the outcome of roulette.
And developing the modern applications of probability theory, the creation of the first wearable computer.
Maybe, since you can predict where the planets go, you might be able to predict where a roulette ball is going to go. Of course, there's a lot of friction and other things in a roulette wheel that make the problem, in a sense, more difficult and more uncertain.
Now, to beat roulette, he and Claude Shannon invented the first wearable computer, as the Chancellor mentioned.
I set to work to actually build a prediction machine for roulette, and eventually succeeded.
Edward O. Thorp is the author of Beat the Dealer.
But when Beat the Dealer came out in 1962, November, it wasn't too long thereafter when they introduced multi-deck games. And the casinos thought, gee, counting one deck's hard. Counting 2 or 4 or 6 or 8, it's got to be impossible.
He also wrote A Man for All Markets, From Las Vegas to Wall Street, How I Beat the Dealer and the Market.
In investing, it's often called evidence-based investing, where you go out and collect the evidence wherever you find it, you vet it, and then you try to make a judgment.
Gambling is investing simplified, and it's a terrific training ground if you have a winning system for learning how to invest on Wall Street, because you can get exact numbers and you can learn discipline and you can learn money management.
Well, if you go to a casino, you probably know that casinos overall make more money than they lose to the players.
Trying to beat a casino gambling game.
So finding an edge in the casino to me meant a system that on average won money from the casino instead of losing money to the casino. One is to try to get a higher rate of return, and the other is to try to get a lower risk.
I went there to case roulette wheels, and before I left, somebody told me about a blackjack strategy that was almost even for the player. You couldn't win, but it'd be almost even. I said, well, if I'm going to be playing roulette in casinos, I better learn something about what it's like to be in a casino and to bet money. He wanted to put $100,000 up, which would be, in today's dollars, close to $1 million. And I said to myself, I haven't done this. I don't know how I'm going to feel playing with money on a far larger scale than anything I've handled. So I'm going to start small. So I said, I only want to take $10,000 for the bankroll. and I'm going to play like that's all we have. And he was quite disappointed, but he went along with it, hoping maybe I would change my mind, which I did not. And so we went out there and with our $10,000, and I played for small stakes for about 20 hours just to get warmed up and get used to the feel of handling the money and playing the cards well. And then I played for bigger stakes for the last 20 hours, and we a little more than doubled that 10,000. So we made about 11,000.
We probably, over all the hedge funds that I ran, made about 800 million for people over about 30 years.
And so the casinos saw my picture in newspapers and magazines, and so it became very tough to play.
Other people just didn't know, but they didn't want my action because they didn't want to lose the money. And word gradually spread that there was this problem player.
Pretty soon the people who worked in the casino came by with their employees one at a time, and they pointed me out so everybody would know who I was. And then about 1 a.m., they basically kicked me out.
If you don't have a system, don't go.